Larry David, my dinner with Adolf.
In this video, Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk takes a look at a satire piece that Larry David wrote about Bill Maher having gone to visit Trump for dinner. And Kyle Kulinski gets very worked up. He's entertaining anyway, but Kyle Kulinski in this video kind of goes off the hook. He reads some of Larry David's satirical essay and talks a lot about how he thinks Bill Maher has completely changed and is using false equivalencies, etc. So, let's check this out together. I'm going to have opinions, and then I want to know what you think in the comments.
So Larry David decided to write a guest essay for the New York Times. Now, look, I don't know. Maybe you guys can tell me. You could post in the comment section if you're familiar with this, but I don't know if he's friends with Bill Maher. I don't know if he knows Bill Maher or not. I think maybe years ago there were some times he went on his show, Real Time, on HBO. I mean, Real Time's been on the air for a really long time. So I think they know each other. How close are they? I have no idea. But clearly, Larry David has been keeping his eye on what Bill Maher has been doing. And Bill Maher recently made a big stink about the fact that Kid Rock invited him to a dinner with President Trump. And Bill Maher accepted it. And it was all the sorts of justifications and rationalizations you would expect, right? It's the classic. I mean, we've been hearing this in right-wing podcast sphere for fucking 5 years now, but the idea, bro, we just need to have conversations, bro. And then let's do 3-hour podcasts where we have conversations about having conversations. Instead of talking about the issues, let's talk about talking about the issues, bro. And by the way, the wokesters are so crazy, bro. Aren't they the worst, bro? How many times I wanted to bang my head against a brick wall, the number of times I've heard those sorts of conversations on Rogan, among other podcasters who are in that lane. And so Bill Maher, look, he's late to the party. Right? When this stuff was at its peak, he was still doing his regular schmegular Bill Maher, I'm a liberal type thing. But now he's trying to be a leader of that dying mindset, the right-wing podcast mindset, which claims to be above the fray, but shits on the far left and woke people 24/7 and tacitly supports Trump, if not outright support Trump. In Bill's case, it's tacit support for Trump. So Larry David saw this, and Bill Maher did this smug-ass 12-minute lecture about how, actually, it's great that I met with the president, and actually, he was a very nice guy behind the scenes, and actually, yeah, he's different in public, but the guy I knew, it turns out he's not totally crazy. He only plays a crazy guy on TV, okay? And what me and the president agreed on is that anybody who doesn't want us to meet and have a conversation, we don't like you, okay? And so the main takeaway here, it's not hard to figure out the problem with this logic, is I'm going to be totally and completely dismissive of people to my left who have criticism for me. Not interested in a beer with them, not interested in conversation with them, not interested in steel manning their point of view. I'm smugly dismissing them and saying they're not even worth talking to. While at the same time stressing the importance of conversations, okay? And I need to have conversations with Trump and Trump-aligned people, okay? So there's a massive performative contradiction at the heart of all of this, right? And Larry David notices it. So his article for the New York Times, ready? This is amazing. Larry David, my dinner with Adolf. Imagine my surprise when in the spring of 1939, a letter arrived at my house inviting me to dinner at the old chancellery with the world's most reviled man, Adolf Hitler. I had been a vocal critic of his on the radio from the beginning, pretty much predicting everything he was going to do on the road to dictatorship. No one I knew encouraged me to go. He's Hitler. He's a monster. But eventually I concluded that hate gets us nowhere. I knew I couldn't change his views, but we need to talk to the other side, even if it has invaded and annexed other countries and committed unspeakable crimes against humanity. 2 weeks later, I found myself on the front steps of the old chancellery and was led into an opulent living room where a few of the Fuhrer's most vocal supporters had gathered. Himmler, Göring, Leni Riefenstahl, and the Duke of Windsor, formerly King Edward the 7th? No, 8th. Sorry, I suck at reading Roman numerals. We talked about some of the beautiful art on the walls that has been taken from the homes of Jews. But our conversation ended abruptly when we heard loud footsteps coming down the hallway. Everyone stiffened as Hitler entered the room. He was wearing a tan suit with a swastika armband and gave me an enthusiastic greeting that caught me off guard. Frankly, it was a warmer greeting than I normally get from my parents, and it was accompanied by a slap on my back. I found the whole thing quite disarming. I joked that I was surprised to see him in a tan suit because if he wore that out, it would be perceived as unführer-like. That amused him to no end, and I realized I had never seen him laugh before. Suddenly, he seemed so human. Literally, Maher said that I'd never seen Trump laugh before, and he was laughing and smiling. Suddenly, he seemed so human. Here I was, prepared to meet Hitler, the one I'd seen and heard, the public Hitler, but this private Hitler was a completely different animal, and oddly enough, this one seemed more authentic. Like this was the real Hitler. The whole thing had my head spinning. He said he was starving and led us into the dining room where he gestured for me to sit next to him. Goring immediately grabbed a slice of pumpernickel, whereupon Hitler turned to me, gave me an eye roll, then whispered, Watch, he'll be done with the entire meal before you take 2 bites. That one really got me. Goring, with his mouth full, asked what was so funny, and Hitler said, I was just telling him about the time my dog had diarrhea in the Reichstag. Goring remembered. How could he forget? He loved that story, especially the part where Hitler shot the dog before he got back into the car. Then a beaming Hitler said, Hey, if I can kill Jews, gypsies, and homosexuals, I can certainly kill a dog. That perhaps got the biggest laugh of the night. And believe me, there was plenty. So anyway, this goes on, but you get the gist of it. He's like ruthlessly mocking Bill Maher for going to eat with Trump. And look, I have to say, this is incredibly refreshing. Because like I just pointed out, Bill Maher's a total hypocrite. When he talks, I believe in conversation, okay. Well, like I just said, he's been nothing but smugly dismissive of everybody to his left for years now. When was the last time he had somebody with my ideology on Real Time? Doesn't happen. They're excised from the conversation completely. But with Trump and with MAGA people, it's, we need to understand each other. We need to talk about where we agree and where we disagree. We need to find common ground, okay? And this is all a fucking shell game. He's providing liberal and centrist cover for Trump.
It does normalize it all. I was listening to a really interesting podcast the other day about the shift towards autocracy and how fast it is and how deliberate it is. And in that context, it doesn't really matter how affable Trump the man may be. Trump the president and Trump the president's policies are directly aimed at dismantling the checks and balances. He's trying to turn himself into a king, and I don't care if he's got a nice laugh or he throws a nice dinner party.
That's what he's doing. And by the way, if you test his approach to this stuff, test the consistency of his approach, he would fail. In fact, anybody and everybody would fail if they're all, I'm just all about conversations. Really? Would you be fine with having a long conversation with a serial killer? How about a child rapist? In Bill's case, how about a Muslim fundamentalist jihadist? How about a Stalin-defending communist? How about a former friend of yours who betrayed you and wronged you and stole a tremendous amount of money from you? Are you interested in the power of conversation and discussion with a violent, paranoid schizophrenic? Are you interested in the art of discussion with a cult leader who already has the blood of many people on their hands because they made them drink the Kool-Aid? Are you interested in if we could bring Mussolini back from the dead? Would you? We're just discussing ideas, okay? Like, this fucking ridiculous idea. People need, like, I'm fully on the other side of this now. This ridiculous, I'm just all about conversation. First of all, no, the fuck you're not. Second of all, plenty of people draw plenty of fucking lines when it comes to, you know what, that's beyond the pale. I'm going to pass on that, right? Now, by the way, as I've said, I honestly would have had no problem with Trump in particular as long as you held him accountable, you called him out, you present to the world this face of like, look, this guy's beyond the pale. He's unacceptable. Right? And honestly, you should have recorded it in that scenario. I'd much rather have you meet him on camera and press him than meet him behind the scenes and play footsies with him. So like in this particular instance, I have no problem with arguing with people, debating people, making the lines clear, saying they are out of bounds. But the idea of just conversation for conversation's sake, okay? Because what that does is it does normalize and humanize this idea that, look, what he's doing is within the realm of debate and discussion. Right? It is a reasonable opinion to have to say, let's scrap the Constitution and due process, have no hearing, and ship innocent people to a slave labor concentration camp gulag in El Salvador. No, I'm sorry, Bill. That is not reasonable. That is not within the realm of what's acceptable. That's not just an opinion. These are crimes. These are crimes. So that's the point, right? Yeah, oh, he had a nice smile and he actually laughed. What the fuck does that have to do with the fact that he's now threatening to steal Greenland illegally? Like 6% of the population says, yeah, I want to join the U.S. He goes, we have to have it. I don't care. We have to have it. He wants to steal Greenland. He wants to steal Panama. They literally already wrote up some war plans for that. He's warmongering with Mexico as well. He's saying to Canada, you're going to become the 51st state, and if you don't, I'm going to change your water rights and change the border with you and steal more of your land. He's saying we're going to own Gaza. We're going to take over Gaza. We're going to own Gaza. We're going to build hotels and casinos. It's going to be beautiful. But the Palestinians can't be there because he's trying to finish the genocide and finish the ethnic cleansing. Like, at what point can you say this? None of this is matters of opinion anymore. The guy's a criminal. The guy should be locked up. He tried to steal the last fucking election with which Bill Maher knows, right? What is it about the right and about MAGA that disarms people to the point where they feel like, well, I can't call a spade and I can't be honest about what's going on, so I guess I have to meet them halfway and try to be artful about this. There is no artfulness.
I guess it must be some version if you can't beat them, join them. But the problem is there is no joining them. They never really let you in on the inside, and we can beat them. They want us to feel like we can't. But every freedom we don't fight for, we lose, and it doesn't just come back, right? We can't just say, well, maybe in the next election we'll get him out of there and then things will go back to normal. But the things that he's already broken stay broken. They don't just snap back into place. They're freedoms that we've already lost. And you know, the freedoms that we don't fight against losing just evaporate. Right? That's why it's this fire hose of executive orders, because they figure if we do 100 of them and you successfully challenge 30 of them, we still get away with 60 of them.
Right? It's not a thing. When everybody looks back to Larry David's point, when everybody looks back at Hitler and the Nazis, everybody says the same shit. Why didn't anybody do anything to stop it? Why did anybody tolerate any of that? What the fuck is going on? And there will come a time in the not too distant future where people will have to answer the same fucking question about what's going on in this country right now. Yes, I'm making the comparison. And it is an apt comparison. It is a fair comparison, because when you do stuff like totally destroy the Constitution and due process and ship people to a concentration camp, an extrajudicial gulag, a slave labor gulag with no hearing, and they're innocent people, 90% no criminal record, that's what that is. There is a comparison there because it's an apt comparison. It is accurate. It is fair. And Larry David gets it, and Bill Maher fucking doesn't, right? And look, at the end of the day, there's also quite a bit of, I guarantee you, it's an audience thing too, right? He's been slowly creeping to the right over time. And what happens is, when you do that, you get right-wingers who come into your audience and fucking cheer you on, and he wants that positive reinforcement. And so he's now carved this lane for himself of, I'm the centrist-minded, I'm the enlightened centrist-minded individual, and I'll call everything equal, and I'll do false equivalence all day long, and I'll say, the right has some problems, but the left also has some problems, okay? In a moment like this, where this administration is doing a robber baron coup led by Elon Musk and has gone full fascist, now's the time you choose to well, what about both sides? It's so embarrassing. It's so pathetic. It's complete loser cucked bullshit. And Larry David sees it, and that's why Larry David wrote this. And I guarantee you, if Bill Maher responds to it, it'll be, why would you comparing Trump to Hitler is unacceptable, okay? It shows how deranged you are, okay? And as I've already explained to you, it's not deranged at all. It's a perfectly fair comparison given the nature of how extreme he's been and how far he's gone and how much he's ushering in fascism, right? When you're saying, oh, you protested Israel on a college campus, so now I'm going to lock you up indefinitely. What is that? What is that? So, God bless Larry David. Love the guy. I love how subtle this is. He didn't even fucking mention Bill Maher, and he torched him to the high heavens without breaking a fucking sweat. This guy is goated here.
So, to me, what's really accelerating here is the attacks on the legal system, the attacks on educational institutions, the attacks on our civil liberties, reproductive health, kids, this whole autism thing. None of it is unrelated. None of it is unrelated. It's an assault aimed at turning our liberal democracy into what people call an elective autocracy. So we still have elections, but they're not free and fair, so it doesn't really matter, right? That's the way Vladimir Putin has 90% approval ratings, right? They control what is allowed to be out on the media. Guess what? It's only positive stuff for them. They control information, and it becomes a pay-to-play system. The president can get rid of term limits, can essentially do whatever he wants. And we see that with Viktor Orban. We see that with Turkey's Erdogan. It's a playbook at this point. And to compare Trump to Hitler and to call him a Nazi, I mean, I get it. I have talked in that way myself in the past. But what it really is, it's an authoritarian playbook. I don't think Trump has an ideology the way Hitler had an ideology. And I think this assault on some of the same groups of people, right? With Hitler, it was the gypsies and the Jews and et cetera. And it's just that they're the vulnerable populations that he feels like the rest of us aren't going to fight back as hard against, because we'll say, oh, well, at least it's not me. But we're next, right? Anybody who doesn't fall in line. And it's very scary indeed. One estimate says that we will have descended into a full-blown electoral autocracy by this summer if things continue at the pace they're going. That's a terrifying thought. So this is amusing and I enjoy this, but we can't continue to brush it off and take it lightly. And, oh, it was a nice dinner. You know, it's serious. Let me know what you think in the comments.